Woman flees home in ice cream truck. Years later, returns as frozen dessert expert and surprises family. Hello, welcome. Leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. In a small town where whispers travel faster than the breeze, a battered ice cream truck rumbles down Main Street. Its once cheerful jingle now a haunting melody of secrets and survival. Behind the wheel sits Olivia Martinez, a woman whose past is as complex as the intricate swirls of her award-winning gelato. As she steers towards the home she fled years ago, Olivia knows that facing her family means confronting the shadows she's tried so hard to outrun. But with her daughter by her side and a repertoire of extraordinary flavors as her shield, she's about to serve up a dish of truth that will change everything. Get ready for a story that melts the boundaries between fear and courage, proving that sometimes the sweetest redemptions come from the coldest beginnings. The relentless Texas sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of Meadowbrook Lane, its heat shimmering in waves above the pavement. It was the kind of scorching summer day when even the cicadas seemed too exhausted to sing. In the Martinez household, the air conditioning unit wheezed and sputtered, fighting a losing battle against the oppressive heat. Olivia Martinez stood at the kitchen sink, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the countertop. The 27-year-old mother of one stared out the window, her dark eyes fixed on the perfectly manicured lawn of their suburban home. To any passerby, the house would have looked like a slice of the American dream: pristine white siding, red shutters, and a picket fence that gleamed under the merciless sun. But for Olivia, it was a prison of her own making, its walls closing in with each passing day. She flinched as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from upstairs. Her husband, Mark, was home early from his shift at the police station. Olivia's heart raced as she quickly wiped her hands on her apron and smoothed down her hair, desperately trying to appear composed. She could smell the faint hint of whiskey on the air, a scent that had become all too familiar over the past few years. "Mama?" A small voice called from the living room. 5-year-old Sophia peered around the doorframe, her big brown eyes wide with concern. "Is Daddy home?" Olivia forced a smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yes, Mija. Why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I'll call you when dinner's ready." Sophia nodded solemnly, her little feet padding quietly up the carpeted stairs. Olivia's chest tightened as she watched her daughter disappear from view. Sophia was too young to fully understand, but she was old enough to sense the tension that crackled through their home like static electricity. The stairs creaked, and Mark appeared in the kitchen doorway. His police uniform was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. "Where's my dinner?" he growled, his words slightly slurred. Olivia's hands trembled as she reached for a pot on the stove. "I'm just finishing up, Mark. It'll be ready in a few minutes." He grunted, dropping heavily into a chair at the kitchen table. "You'd think after all these years, you'd learn to have it ready when I get home." She bit her lip, focusing on stirring the pot of chili. It was safer not to respond, safer to stay quiet, to keep the peace. But with each passing moment, a voice in the back of her mind grew louder, insisting that this couldn't go on. As Olivia ladled the chili into bowls, her gaze drifted to the window once more. Outside, an old ice cream truck rumbled past, its tinkling melody a bittersweet reminder of simpler times. She remembered summers spent chasing after that very truck, coins jingling in her pocket, the promise of a sweet treat making her heart soar. Now, that same melody seemed to whisper of freedom, of escape. Olivia's hand unconsciously moved to her cheek, where the faintest hint of a bruise was hidden beneath a layer of carefully applied makeup. How many more excuses could she make? How many more accidents could she explain away? "Olivia!" Mark's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Are you deaf? I said bring me my damn dinner." She startled, nearly dropping the bowl in her hands. As she set it in front of him, careful to avoid his gaze, a plan began to form in her mind. It was crazy, desperate even. But as she looked at the stairs where Sophia had disappeared, Olivia knew she had to try. For her daughter's sake. For her own. That night, after Mark had passed out on the couch and Sophia was tucked safely in bed, Olivia crept down to the kitchen. With shaking hands, She pulled out an old duffel bag she'd hidden in the back of the pantry months ago. In a moment of foresight, she'd been too afraid to act on until now. She worked quickly and quietly, shoving clothes, important documents, and what little cash she'd managed to squirrel away into the bag. As she zipped it closed, her eyes fell on a framed photo on the counter, a snapshot of happier times, when Mark's smile had been genuine and his touch gentle. Olivia's throat tightened as she turned the frame face down. That man was gone, replaced by someone she no longer recognized. With one last look around the kitchen, Olivia shouldered the bag and crept upstairs. She gently woke Sophia, whispering for her to be quiet as she helped her dress. The little girl, sleepy and confused, clutched her favorite stuffed animal as Olivia led her downstairs and out the back door. The night air was thick and humid, but to Olivia, it felt like the first breath of freedom. They slipped through the shadows of the neighborhood, Sophia's small hand clasped tightly in hers. At the end of the street, just where Olivia had prayed it would be, sat the old ice cream truck. Its owner, Mr. Jimenez, was locking up for the night. He looked up in surprise as Olivia approached, her desperation evident in every line of her body. "Mr. Jimenez," she whispered urgently, "I need your help, please." The old man's kind eyes took in the scene before him, the young mother, the sleepy child, the packed bag. Understanding dawned on his weathered face. Without a word, he nodded and opened the passenger door of the truck. As Olivia settled Sophia into the seat and climbed in herself, she caught sight of her reflection in the side mirror. The woman staring back at her was scared. Yes, but there was something else there too. A glimmer of hope, of determination. The ice cream truck's engine sputtered to life, its familiar jingle silenced for the clandestine journey. As they pulled away from Meadowbrook Lane, leaving behind the only life Sophia had ever known, Olivia's mind raced with questions. Where would they go? How would they survive? But beneath the fear and uncertainty, a small spark of excitement flickered to life. For the first time in years, Olivia Martinez was taking control of her destiny. And as the lights of their neighborhood faded in the rearview mirror, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a sweeter future waiting on the horizon. The rhythmic hum of tires on asphalt filled the cab of the ice cream truck as it cruised down the interstate, leaving Texas far behind. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Olivia sat rigid in the passenger seat, her eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see flashing lights in pursuit. Mr. Jimenez, bless his soul, hadn't asked many questions. He'd driven through the night, stopping only for gas and to let Olivia use the restroom. Now, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, he cleared his throat. "Mija," he said gently, his accent thick with fatigue. "We're approaching New Mexico. Do you have a plan?" Olivia tore her gaze from the mirror and looked at the kind old man who had risked so much to help them. She felt a pang of guilt. I'm not sure," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just knew we had to get away." In the back of the truck, Sophia stirred from her makeshift bed of empty ice cream boxes and spare uniforms. "Mama?" she called out, her voice thick with sleep. "Where are we?" Olivia turned to face her daughter, forcing a smile. "We're on an adventure, Mija. Remember how you always wanted to travel? Well, now we are." Sophia's eyes widened with excitement, too young to fully grasp the gravity of their situation. "Really? Can we get ice cream for breakfast?" Mr. Jimenez chuckled, the sound warming the tense atmosphere in the truck. "I think that can be arranged, Pequeña. How about we stop at the next town and see what we can find?" As they pulled into a small New Mexican town, its adobe buildings glowing warmly in the morning light, Olivia felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They were far from home now, but what next? She had some cash, but it wouldn't last long, and Sophia would need to start school soon. Mr. Jimenez parked the truck in a quiet lot behind a local diner. "Let's get some real food in you too," he said, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "Then we'll figure out the next step." Over plates of huevos rancheros and steaming mugs of coffee, and yes, a small bowl of vanilla ice cream for Sophia, Olivia finally let herself break down. Tears streamed down her face as she recounted the years of abuse, the fear, the shame that had kept her trapped for so long. Mr. Jimenez listened patiently, his weathered hand resting comfortingly on hers. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "You did the right thing, Olivia. No one deserves to live in fear, especially not in their own home." "But what do I do now?" Olivia asked, her voice cracking. "I have no job, no home, no—" "You have skills," Mr. Jimenez interrupted firmly. "I've seen how you've helped me with the ice cream truck over the years. You have a knack for flavors, for making people smile. Perhaps that's where you start." Olivia blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" The old man's eyes twinkled. "My niece, she owns a small gelato shop in Santa Fe, always complaining she needs help. It's not much, but it's a start. A place to lay low, to build something new." Hope, fragile but persistent, bloomed in Olivia's chest. "You'd do that for us?" Mr. Jimenez smiled, reaching out to chuck Sophia under the chin as she giggled around a spoonful of ice cream. "Familia isn't always blood, Mija. Sometimes it's the people who step up when you need them most." And so, with a few phone calls and a promise to pay it forward someday, Olivia and Sophia found themselves in Santa Fe, stepping into a new chapter of their lives. The gelato shop, Dulce Sueños, was a tiny place tucked away on a side street, its window display a riot of colors and flavors. Carmen, Mr. Jimenez's niece, was a whirlwind of energy and warmth. She embraced Olivia and Sophia as if they were long-lost relatives, ushering them into the small apartment above the shop that would be their new home. "It's not much," Carmen apologized, gesturing to the modest furnishings. "But it's safe, and the neighborhood looks out for its own." Olivia felt overwhelmed by the kindness of these near strangers. "I don't know how to thank you," she began, but Carmen waved her off. "Thank me by learning the business," she said with a wink. "I need someone with passion and creativity. Tio tells me you have both in spades." That night, as Sophia slept peacefully in their new shared bedroom, Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the unfamiliar streets of Santa Fe. Fear still gnawed at the edges of her mind. What if Mark found them? What if she couldn't make this work? But beneath the fear, a tiny seed of excitement had taken root. She thought of the endless possibilities of flavors, of the joy on people's faces as they tasted something new and delightful. For the first time in years, Olivia allowed herself to dream of a future that was her own. As she crawled into bed beside her daughter, Olivia made a silent promise. This was their fresh start, their chance at a sweeter life, and she would do everything in her power to make it work, one scoop at a time. The summer heat in Santa Fe was different from Texas, drier, more intense. As weeks turned into months, Olivia found herself adapting not just to the climate, but to a whole new way of life. The tiny kitchen of Dulce Sueños became her sanctuary, a place where she could lose herself in the alchemy of creating frozen delights. Carmen proved to be not just a boss, but a mentor and friend. She taught Olivia the intricacies of gelato making, from balancing flavors to achieving the perfect texture. Olivia threw herself into the work with a passion that surprised even her. Each new recipe was a small victory, a step further away from the life she'd left behind. "Mama, can I taste?" Sophia's eager voice piped up one afternoon as Olivia experimented with a new flavor combination. The little girl had grown inches in the months since their escape, her eyes brighter, her laughter more frequent. Olivia smiled, offering a small spoon of the pale green gelato. "What do you think, Mija? Is it good?" Sophia's eyes widened as she tasted. "It's like summer and Grandma's garden." Olivia's heart swelled with pride and a tinge of bittersweet nostalgia. The flavor, a blend of basil, lime, and a hint of honey, had indeed been inspired by memories of her mother's herb garden. It was a connection to her past that felt safe to explore, to share with her daughter. "Dios mío, Olivia!" Carmen exclaimed, sampling the gelato herself. "This is incredible. We have to add it to the menu." And so, summer memory, became dulce sueños' first original flavor, created by Olivia. It was an instant hit with customers, many of whom said it reminded them of childhood summers and secret gardens. As Olivia's confidence grew, so did her repertoire. She began experimenting more boldly, drawing inspiration from the rich cultural tapestry of Santa Fe. There was Desert Sunrise, a delicate balance of prickly pear and citrus. Midnight at the Plaza, a dark chocolate gelato infused with red chili and cinnamon. And Sophia's favorite, Unicorn Dreams, a whimsical swirl of strawberry, marshmallow, and edible glitter. Each new creation felt like a step towards reclaiming her identity. Olivia Martinez was no longer just a victim fleeing her past. She was an artist, a creator, a mother building a new life for her child. But even as Dulce Sueños flourished under Olivia's innovative touch, shadows of the past lingered. Some nights, she'd wake in a cold sweat, Mark's angry voice echoing in her dreams. She'd creep to Sophia's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, reminding herself why they could never go back. One crisp autumn morning, as Olivia prepared to open the shop, she noticed a police car crawling slowly down the street. Her heart leapt into her throat, old fears surging to the surface. But the car passed without stopping, and Olivia forced herself to breathe. This wasn't Texas. She was safe here, wasn't she? Later that day, as the shop bustled with the afternoon crowd, a man's gruff voice cut through the cheerful chatter. "I'm looking for my wife and daughter. They've been missing for months." Olivia froze, the scoop in her hand clattering to the floor. But when she turned, it wasn't Mark standing at the counter, just a tourist showing a photo to Carmen, who shook her head sympathetically. As the man left, disappointment etched on his face. Olivia felt a surge of guilt. Somewhere out there, her own parents were probably worried sick, wondering what had happened to their daughter and granddaughter. But she couldn't risk contacting them, not when Mark might be watching. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Olivia sat at their small kitchen table, a blank postcard before her. Her pen hovered over the paper, trembling slightly. Finally, she wrote, "We are safe. We are happy. I'm sorry I can't say more. Please don't worry. All my love, oh." She addressed it to her parents, but used Carmen's cousin in Albuquerque as the return address. It wasn't much, but it was all she could safely offer. As she dropped the postcard into a mailbox across town the next morning, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She was building a new life, yes, but she hadn't forgotten where she came from. Someday, she hoped, she'd be able to bridge the gap between her past and her future. But for now, she had gelato to make and a daughter to raise. With renewed determination, Olivia headed to the shop. Today's special? Courage in Bloom, a bold combination of lavender, honey, and a hint of lemon. As she mixed the ingredients, Olivia smiled to herself. Perhaps, in her own small way, she was serving up not just desserts, but hope, one scoop at a time. 3 years flew by in a whirlwind of sugar, cream, and endless experimentation. Dulce Sueños had become a local sensation, with lines often stretching around the block. Food bloggers raved about the mysterious gelato genius of Santa Fe, and tourists made special trips just to sample Olivia's creations. Sophia, now 8, had blossomed into a vivacious young girl with her mother's creativity and a fierce independence all her own. She'd become the shop's unofficial taste tester and idea generator, her wild flavor suggestions sometimes leading to surprising successes. On a warm spring morning, as Olivia prepared for another busy day, Carmen burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with excitement. "Olivia, you won't believe this." Olivia looked up from the batch of pistachio gelato she was working on. "What's happened? Is everything okay?" Carmen thrust a glossy magazine into Olivia's hands. "We've been nominated for Best Gelato in the Southwest by Dessert Aficionado. They want to do a feature on the shop and on you." Olivia's heart raced as she stared at the magazine. Her creations were there, beautifully photographed, alongside a short write-up praising the shop's innovative flavors. But it was the last line that made her blood run cold. The reclusive genius behind these extraordinary creations remains a mystery, known only as, "Oh, Carmen," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "I can't. If they publish my photo, if they use my full name." Understanding dawned on Carmen's face. In the years since Olivia's arrival, she'd pieced together enough of her friend's past to know that publicity could be dangerous. "Oh, Mija, I'm so sorry. I didn't think." Olivia took a deep breath, forcing herself to think rationally. This nomination was an incredible opportunity for the shop, for all of them. She couldn't let her fear hold them back. "No, it's okay. We can make this work. Maybe I can do the interview without photos? Or use a pseudonym?" Carmen nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, we'll figure it out. You deserve recognition for your talent, Olivia. We won't let the past steal this from you too." Over the next few weeks, as they prepared for the magazine feature, Olivia felt like she was living two lives. By day, she was Olivia Reyes, a nod to her maternal grandmother's name, the innovative gelato chef giving carefully worded interviews about her creative process. By night, she was still Olivia Martinez, checking the locks twice and starting at every unexpected sound. The magazine article, when it came out, was a triumph. Oh, Reyes was praised as a rising star in the culinary world. Her story of learning gelato making in Italy, a white lie concocted for the interview, captivating readers. Orders poured in from all over the country, and talks of expansion began. But with success came new challenges. As Dulce Sueños grew, so did the pressure on Olivia. She found herself working longer hours, the fear of being discovered warring with her desire to build something lasting for Sofia. One night, as she tucked an overtired Sofia into bed, her daughter asked a question that broke her heart. "Mama, why don't we ever visit Abuela and Abuelo? Don't they miss us?" Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, struggling to find the right words. "Oh, Mija, they miss us very much, and we miss them. But sometimes grown-ups have complicated reasons for the choices they make. I promise you, everything I've done has been to keep you safe and happy." Sofia's brow furrowed. "Is it because of Daddy? Is he why we left?" Olivia's breath caught in her throat. They talked about Mark in vague terms over the years, but she'd never fully explained why they'd fled. Perhaps it was time for a version of the truth. "Yes, sweetie, your father, he wasn't a kind man. He hurt me, and I was afraid he might hurt you too. So we left to find a safer, happier life." Tears welled up in Sofia's eyes. "But now we're safe, right? Can't we at least call Abuela?" Olivia pulled her daughter close, her own eyes stinging. "We are safer, yes. And you know what? I think maybe it is time we reached out to Abuela and Abuelo. Not right away, but soon. We'll find a way to do it safely." As Sofia drifted off to sleep, Olivia's mind raced. She knew reconnecting with her parents would be risky, but Sofia deserved to know her family. And if she was honest with herself, Olivia ached for that connection too. The next morning, as she opened the shop, Olivia felt a new sense of purpose. Today's special would be roots and wings, a rich, creamy base swirled with homemade dulce de leche, a nod to her mother's favorite dessert, and studded with candied pecans, her father's go-to snack. It was a tribute to where she'd come from and a celebration of how far she'd flown. As she worked, Olivia began to formulate a plan. It would take time and careful preparation, but she would find a way to bridge her past and her present. For Sofia, for her parents, and for herself, she would find the courage to fully embrace both the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become. The first batch of roots and wings came out of the machine, and Olivia allowed herself a small, secret smile. Sweet, complex, with layers of flavor that unfolded slowly. It was, perhaps, her most personal creation yet. And like Olivia herself, it was both a product of its origins and something entirely new. The summer sun beat down on Santa Fe's adobe buildings, turning the city into a terracotta oven. Inside Dulce Sueños, however, the atmosphere was cool and sweet-scented. Olivia wiped her brow as she put the finishing touches on a batch of her newest creation, Monsoon Melody, a refreshing blend of cucumber, mint, and a hint of lime, inspired by the afternoon thunderstorms that brought brief respite from the heat. As she worked, her mind wandered to the conversation she'd had with Sophia a few weeks ago. The promise to reconnect with her parents weighed heavily on her conscience. She knew it was time, but fear still gnawed at her insides. What if Mark was somehow monitoring her parents? What if reaching out put everyone in danger? The chime of the shop's bell interrupted her thoughts. Carmen's voice floated from the front. "Olivia, you've got to see this." Curious, Olivia made her way to the counter. Carmen stood there, practically vibrating with excitement, a tablet in her hands. "Look, we've gone viral." Olivia peered at the screen, her eyes widening. A popular food vlogger had visited Dulce Sueños the week before, and their video review had just been posted. The viewer count was already in the millions. And let me tell you folks, this isn't just ice cream. It's not even just gelato. What Reyes creates here is edible art. Each flavor tells a story, evokes a memory. It's... The vlogger actually teared up on camera. "It's like tasting someone's soul, you know?" Olivia felt a blush creep up her neck. "Oh my goodness," she murmured. "This is huge." Carmen squealed. "We're going to be swamped. We might need to think about hiring more help. Maybe even..." But Olivia had stopped listening. Her eyes were fixed on a comment below the video. "Wait a second. Is that Olivia Martinez? From Meadowbrook? Looks just like a girl I went to high school with." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Olivia gripped the counter for support, her knuckles white. "Carmen," she whispered, "I need you to take that video down. Now." Carmen's excitement faded, replaced by concern. "Olivia, what's wrong? Please just trust me. We need to get that video removed. And I think it's time I told you everything." That night, after closing, Olivia sat with Carmen in the darkened shop. Over scoops of courage and bloom, she poured out the whole story. The years of abuse, the night she fled with Sophia, the constant fear of being discovered. Carmen listened, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Olivia," she said when the tale was done. "I had no idea. I mean, I knew there was something in your past, but you're the bravest person I know." Olivia shook her head. "I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. What if he finds us? What if..." "Stop," Carmen said firmly. "You've built a life here. You have friends, a community. We won't let anyone hurt you or Sophia. But..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Maybe it's time to stop running, to face this head-on." Olivia stared at her melting gelato. "What do you mean? I mean, you're not that scared woman anymore. You're Reyes, gelato genius. You have resources now, connections. Maybe it's time to get legal help, to formally divorce Mark and get a restraining order, to reach out to your parents from a position of strength." The idea was terrifying, but Olivia couldn't deny the tiny spark of hope it ignited. I don't know if I can." Carmen reached across the table, squeezing Olivia's hand. "You don't have to do it alone. We're family now, remember? Whatever you decide, I've got your back." As Olivia lay in bed that night, sleep eluding her, she thought about Carmen's words. She thought about Sophia, growing up without grandparents. She thought about her parents, who must be sick with worry. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to think about Mark, not as the monster of her nightmares, but as a troubled man who no longer held power over her. With trembling hands, she reached for her phone and did something she hadn't dared in 5 years. She searched for news from Meadowbrook. What she found made her gasp. The glare of the laptop screen illuminated Olivia's face in the pre-dawn darkness. She'd been up all night, scouring the internet for information. The more she read, the more surreal it all felt. 2 years after she'd fled, Mark had been arrested not for domestic abuse, but for corruption. Turned out he'd been taking bribes, tampering with evidence. The investigation had uncovered a web of misconduct that spanned years. He was currently serving a 10-year sentence in a federal prison. Olivia's hands shook as she clicked through article after article. There were quotes from her parents, expressing shock at the revelations and pleading for their daughter to come home. There was even a statement from Mark himself, a rambling apology that mentioned her by name. "I've done terrible things," the statement read. "To the community I swore to protect, to my fellow officers, and most of all, to my wife Olivia and our daughter. If you're out there, I'm sorry. You were right to leave. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you don't." Olivia closed the laptop, her mind reeling. All this time, she'd been hiding from a threat that no longer existed. Mark was in prison. Her parents were waiting for her. She was free. As the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, Olivia made a decision. It was time to stop running. Time to reclaim her full identity, to merge Olivia Martinez and Reyes into the woman she'd become. But first, she had a gelato to make. When Sophia woke, she found her mother in the kitchen, surrounded by ingredients. "Mama, what are you doing? We don't open for hours." Olivia turned, her eyes bright with unshed tears and a smile that was equal parts terrified and exhilarated. "Mija, how would you like to meet your grandparents?" Sophia's eyes widened. "Really? But I thought—" "I know, baby. I've got a lot to explain. But first, I need your help with a very special flavor. We're going to call it Coming Home." Throughout the morning, as Olivia told Sophia a carefully edited version of their history and her plans for the future, they worked together. The base was a rich, creamy vanilla, a nod to new beginnings. Swirled throughout were ribbons of cajeta, Sophia's suggestion to represent the sweetness of family. Chunks of pecan praline added a touch of their Texas roots, while a hint of lavender spoke to their new life in Santa Fe. The final touch was a sprinkle of edible gold dust, a symbol of hope and redemption. When Carmen arrived to open the shop, she found Olivia and Sophia waiting, the new flavor ready for tasting. As Olivia explained her discoveries and her decision, Carmen's eyes filled with tears of joy. "I'm so proud of you," she said, pulling Olivia into a fierce hug. "Whatever you need, we're here for you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Olivia hired a lawyer who helped her navigate the complexities of her situation. She filed for a formal divorce, though it was largely a formality given Mark's incarceration. She obtained a restraining order, more for peace of mind than out of any real fear. And then, with hands that trembled only slightly, she picked up the phone and dialed a number she'd once known by heart. "Mama?" she said when a familiar voice answered. "It's Olivia. I'm ready to come home." The reunion was set for a month later. Olivia's parents would come to Santa Fe, neutral ground that allowed Olivia to feel safe and in control. As the day approached, Olivia vacillated between excitement and terror. Sophia, on the other hand, was purely thrilled. The morning of the meeting, Olivia stood in front of the mirror, hardly recognizing herself. Gone was the fearful woman who'd fled in the night. In her place stood a successful businesswoman, a loving mother, a survivor. She'd chosen to wear an apron over her clothes, a symbol of her new identity and the life she'd built. "Ready, Mija?" she called to Sophia. They walked to a nearby park, where two familiar figures waited on a bench. Olivia's steps faltered. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Sophia squeezed her hand. "You can, Mama. We can. Remember what you always tell me about trying new flavors." Olivia smiled despite her nerves. "Sometimes the scariest combinations turn out to be the most delicious." "Exactly," Sophia said. "Now come on. I want to meet my grandparents." As they approached, Olivia's mother looked up. Their eyes met, and 5 years of separation melted away. "Olivia," her mother breathed, standing on shaky legs. "Oh, my baby girl." And then they were embracing, tears flowing freely. Olivia's father enveloped them both in his arms, his broad shoulders shaking with sobs. When they finally separated, Olivia wiped her eyes and gently pushed Sophia forward. "Mama, Papa, I want you to meet someone very special. This is your granddaughter, Sophia." As Sophia was swept up in her grandparents' embrace, Olivia felt a weight she'd carried for years finally lift. There would be long conversations ahead, explanations and apologies on both sides. There would be challenges as they navigated this new reality. But for now, in this moment, Olivia allowed herself to simply feel the joy of coming home. Later that evening, as the reunited family sat in Dulce Sueños sharing a bowl of coming home, Olivia looked around at the life she'd built, at the daughter she'd raised, the parents she'd reclaimed, the chosen family she'd found in Carmen and the community. She thought of the scared woman who'd fled in an ice cream truck 5 years ago and silently thanked her for her courage. That woman could never have imagined this moment, this feeling of wholeness. As Sofia regaled her grandparents with tales of her gelato-tasting adventures, Olivia allowed herself a quiet smile. Life, she reflected, was a lot like gelato. Sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter, always complex. But with the right ingredients and a lot of love, you could create something truly extraordinary. And Olivia Martinez, also known as O. Reyes, was ready for her next batch. The bell above the door of Dulce Sueños chimed merrily as Olivia's parents stepped inside, their faces a mix of awe and pride. It had been 6 months since their emotional reunion in the park, and they had decided to move to Santa Fe to be closer to Olivia and Sofia. Today was their first time seeing the shop in person. "Oh, Olivia," her mother breathed, taking in the colorful displays and the line of eager customers. "This is incredible." Olivia felt a warmth bloom in her chest. After years of separation, having her parents here, seeing the life she'd built, felt surreal. "Would you like a tour?" she asked, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. As she showed them around, explaining the gelato-making process and sharing stories behind some of her most popular flavors, Olivia marveled at how much had changed. The fear that had been her constant companion for so long had faded, replaced by a cautious optimism. Her father paused in front of a framed magazine article, the feature that had once terrified Olivia with its potential for exposure. Now it hung proudly on the wall, a testament to her success. "Oh, Reyes?" he read aloud, a question in his voice. Olivia smiled. "A pseudonym I used when I was still in hiding. But now," she gestured to a new sign above the counter, freshly painted, "Dulce Sueños by Olivia Martinez Reyes." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "You found a way to honor both parts of yourself." "I had a lot of help," Olivia admitted, thinking of Carmen, of Sofia, of the community that had embraced her. "I'm still figuring it all out, but I'm not alone anymore." As if on cue, Sofia burst through the back door, her school backpack still on. "Abuela, abuelo," she cried, rushing into their arms. "Did Mama show you my special flavor yet?" Olivia laughed. "I was saving that for last, Mija. Why don't you do the honors?" Beaming with pride, Sofia led her grandparents to a special display case. Inside was a gelato swirled with vibrant colors, deep purple, sunny yellow, and a rich orange. "It's called Family Fiesta," Sofia explained. "The purple is blackberry, for Abuela's favorite jam. The yellow is mango, for Abuelo's favorite fruit. And the orange is sweet potato, for Mama's favorite Thanksgiving pie." As Olivia's parents tasted the creation, their expressions of delight brought happy tears to Olivia's eyes. This moment, her daughter's creativity, her parents' joy, the success of the shop, it was more than she had ever dared to dream of during those dark years. Later that evening, after closing, the family sat around a table in the empty shop. Sofia had gone to bed, and the adults nursed cups of Olivia's newest experiment, a warm, spiced horchata gelato. "Olivia," her father said seriously, setting down his cup, "your mother and we owe you an apology." Olivia looked up, startled. "For what?" Her mother reached across the table, taking Olivia's hand. "For not seeing what was happening with Mark. For not protecting you. We should have known, should have done something." "No, Mama," Olivia interrupted gently. "You couldn't have known. I hid it so well, even from myself for a long time. But when you disappeared," her father continued, his voice rough with emotion, "we feared the worst. We never stopped looking for you, never stopped hoping." Olivia squeezed her mother's hand, reaching out to grasp her father's as well. "I know. and I'm sorry for putting you through that. I was so scared, so focused on protecting Sophia, I couldn't see any other way. For a moment, they sat in silence, years of unspoken pain and love flowing between them. What matters, Olivia said finally, is that we're here now. We've been given a second chance, and I don't intend to waste it. As they embraced, Olivia felt another piece of her heart heal. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There were still moments when a loud noise made her jump, nights when old nightmares resurfaced. But she was stronger now, surrounded by love and support. That night, as Olivia lay in bed, an idea began to form. She'd used her gelato to tell stories, to connect with people. Perhaps it was time to use it to help others who had walked a similar path. With a smile, she reached for her notebook. Tomorrow would bring a new flavor, and with it, a new chapter in her journey of healing and hope. The summer sun hung low in the sky, painting Santa Fe in hues of gold and pink. Dulce Sueños was abuzz with activity, but it wasn't the usual crowd of gelato enthusiasts. Tonight was special. Olivia stood behind a makeshift podium, her heart racing as she looked out at the assembled group. Women of all ages filled the shop, some with children in tow, others alone. All wore expressions that Olivia recognized all too well, a mix of wariness, hope, and determination. "Welcome, everyone," Olivia began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Thank you for coming to the first meeting of Sweet Beginnings." In the months since reconnecting with her parents, Olivia had channeled her energy into creating this support group for survivors of domestic abuse. The idea had come to her during a late-night gelato-making session, and with Carmen's encouragement, she'd reached out to local shelters and support services. "I know how hard it was for each of you to come here tonight," Olivia continued. "I've been where you are, scared, unsure, feeling alone. But I'm here to tell you that there's hope. There's a future waiting for you, one scoop at a time." As Olivia shared her story, the abuse, the escape, the years of hiding, and finally, the reclaiming of her life, she saw recognition in the women's eyes. Tears flowed freely, but there were nods of understanding, even a few tentative smiles. When she finished speaking, Olivia gestured to the gelato counter, where Sophia and Carmen stood ready. "Now, I have a special treat for you all. A new flavor I've created just for tonight. It's called Phoenix Rising." As the women approached, Olivia explained the components of the gelato. The base is a rich, dark chocolate, because sometimes life is bitter, but it can also be deeply satisfying. Swirled through it is a bright raspberry ribbon, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still sweetness to be found. The candied ginger pieces represent strength and healing. And the touch of sea salt? That's for the tears you've shed. They're part of your story, but they don't define you. As the group tasted the gelato, the atmosphere in the shop began to shift. Tentative conversations started. A woman comforted a quietly weeping neighbor. Two children, strangers minutes ago, began to play together in the corner. Olivia watched it all, her heart full. This moment of connection, of shared understanding, this was why she'd survived, why she'd fought so hard to rebuild her life. Later, as the last of the attendees left with promises to return next month, Olivia found herself enveloped in a group hug with Carmen, Sophia, and her parents. "I'm so proud of you, Mija," her father said, his voice gruff with emotion. Sophia looked up at Olivia, her eyes shining. "Mama, do you think those ladies will be okay?" Olivia smoothed her daughter's hair, considering her answer carefully. "I hope so, sweetheart. It's not an easy journey, but having support makes all the difference. And sometimes, a little sweetness can help heal even the deepest wounds." As they cleaned up the shop, Olivia's mind was already whirring with ideas for the next meeting. Perhaps a flavor to represent setting boundaries, or one that captured the feeling of reclaiming your voice. The possibilities were endless. That night, as Olivia tucked Sophia into bed, her daughter asked a question that made her pause. "Mama, are you still scared sometimes?" Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes, Mija. Healing takes time, But you know what? Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. Being brave means doing what's right, even when you're afraid. Sophia nodded solemnly. Like making new flavors even if you're not sure people will like them? Olivia laughed softly. Exactly like that. And you know what? Those often turn out to be the best ones. After kissing Sophia goodnight, Olivia made her way to the small balcony off their apartment. The night air was cool and fragrant with pinyon. In the distance, she could see the lights of the plaza, hear the faint strains of music from a late-night fiesta. She thought about the women she'd met tonight, each carrying her own burden of pain and fear. She thought about her younger self, trembling in the back of an ice cream truck, unsure of what the future held. And she thought about the journey that had brought her here, to this place of peace, of purpose, of sweet reinvention. Olivia Martinez Reyes took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new flavors to create, new lives to touch. But tonight, in this moment, she was exactly where she was meant to be. As she turned to go inside, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Olivia smiled, making a silent wish not for herself, but for all those still finding their way. May they too find their sweetness, their strength, their home. Thank you for listening until the end. Share your opinion about the story in the comments and let us know which character you liked the most. If this story touched you and you want to hear more, click on the next story appearing on your screen. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a great community of people who share emotional stories together. Until the next story.